Bronx boy who was trying to put his life back on track after a brush with the law was shot and killed aboard a crowded Lexington Avenue subway train after he and two friends scuffled briefly with a gang of, well, I'm not going to call them youths like the news accounts do, mutants who had announced a stick-up. Now, this fellow, his name was Herbert Brower. He was shot once in the back as he fled from the unlit car, which was, I believe, the last car of an uptown number 6. That was at 3:08 p.m. Strap hangers screaming. They scrambled off the train. And the poor victim stumbled through 2 cars, then he collapsed, and he was pronounced dead at the scene. How dare we call ourselves a civilized society? How dare we refer to New York as the greatest city in America, if not the world? What makes a city great? Is it just that it has more tall buildings? Or that it has the most money? Or that it has the greatest variety of entertainment? Is it that it's the Mecca or the theater? That it yields to no city and restaurant notoriety? That it is the fashion capital of the country? I could go on, but what really makes a city great? How can a city which has brigands terrorizing on a Sunday, terrorizing people near Madison Square Garden after these brigands had just come out of some kind of idiotic rock concert, murder somebody on the subway? How could such a city call itself great? And even though we're the only city to have an emperor instead of a mayor, there's nothing of imperial status about this city, is there? Very quickly, let's say hello to Mo on the line. Mo, what do you want to say about taxi cabs this week?
Well, I wasn't going to mention the word taxi.
Oh, okay, guns.
I want to say this. At last, we got a new taxi commissioner, and he doesn't have the profile of a Koch. I want to say...
By the way, Mo, did you vote in the dumb Koch poll?
Yes, I did. Drivers who were shaken down for so long. Incidentally, to the cab drivers out there, an assistant DA was speaking to an auditorium filled with cab drivers. Many of you weren't there, but he said that if you get any more shakedown attempts from his sleazebag hack inspectors, those parasites, to contact any of the assistant DAs in the city.
All right, thank you very much, Mo. By the way, are they good seats?
Excellent seats.
Are they?
Yes, you don't want me to tell everybody where. They are, I'm sure.
Why should I care?
Well, it's up to you.
I mean,
We're going to have the best seats in the house, right behind home plate.
Really? Is that good?
Yes, it's excellent.
But what will we do while the 3-hour or 4-hour boring affair goes on? Well, we'll be able to talk.
We'll try to find something to slake our thirst.
Oh, that's what you and Nolan go for. I see. And so you're going with a teetotaler like me.
Yeah, you'll love it, too.
Harley. And that's why I know you and Joe will have a great time at the game. I don't know. Hey, folks, I got to tell you, I don't know how I'm going to get out of this. I really don't want to go.
He can't get out of it.
I don't want to go. I hate Yankee Stadium. I hate that end of the Bronx. I hate taking the subway. I hate the Yankees. I hate George Steinbrenner. What am I doing up there? Here's one of the reasons I no longer am a homeowner is I despise any job that has to do with fixing anything, painting anything, but I'm the most unhandy person that ever lived. Let me make that perfectly clear. The most unhandy, the most lazy individual that ever lived. However, in moments of weakness, I get ambitious. Has anybody ever purchased paint? Perfectly good paint, top quality of a particular company's paint. Top quality. After you purchase the paint, a few months go by, you finally decide to paint a den. You run out of paint. You go to get the same number, 635A. You come back, it's not the same. You go back, they return it. You come back, it's still not the same. What would cause the change? Does anybody want a two-tone den? Uffa! Steve, even though Marshal von Steinbrenner refused to let radio reporters at his press conference, I understand you found out why the field marshal called a press conference.
Well, I was in there. They wouldn't allow us to tape any of his words. They must be sacred or something. I don't know, but...
Tomorrow we're going to talk more about this idiotic Supreme Court decision, this outrageous decision, in which the court says even if a man, by his innuendo, his body language, his demeanor, makes you think that he is coming on to you, you can sue for sexual harassment. And if we don't stop it, we might just as well turn the country over to the hobnail boot crowd, the Dykes, the Gloria Steinems, the people like that. Just say, here, run the whole show. I'm sick of it already. Sick of it! It's crazy. It's crazy. And getting crazier. That's the thing. It's crazy and getting crazier.
He would be considered a rookie. I thought it might be that he had one of these little girls with him, you know, these girl cops that they have.
No, fortunately, Goodell had a real police officer with him, but still he died because the police are not allowed to be as well armed as the skunks they're supposed to protect us from.
Uh-huh.
As I understand it, Goodell did fire 6 times. Then he had to stop to reload his gun.
Yes.
And it was at that point that this mutant walked up to the helpless officer, placed his gun inches from Goodell's head, and he fired 1 or possibly 2 shots. And that was the end of Goodell.
Oh, my. Well, I mean, what...
Yeah, by the way, this guy, Robert Walson, I know you don't have a police commissioner, New York Police, so let me act as your police commissioner. This is Police Commissioner Grant speaking to every member of the New York City Police Department. Shoot this skunk Ralston on sight. I don't want him brought in a trial that goes on and on and on, where he probably will be acquitted anyway. So shoot him on sight.
Good for you, Commissioner.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Thank you, Father. I look forward to getting some of the prosecution witnesses, the alleged victims, on... are you looking forward to cross-examining them?
Well, I promise you the following, and I'm going to bet with you, and you know I'm not a betting man, that the district attorney doesn't have the nerve to call any one of those people to the witness stand as his witnesses. I may have to call them as mine.
You would like to see, for example, James Ramseur take the stand, wouldn't you?
Without question. I mean, he's a lawyer's dream. I don't want to make light of it and I make folly of it, but those 4 people that surrounded Bernhard Goetz that day were animals. They were thugs. They're vicious. I must have the jury see them so they can understand what was going through the Goetz mentality at the time that he had to protect himself.
And the prosecution can't claim that this is irrelevant in view of the fact that it is extremely relevant what these 4 people were like.
Well, I would suggest that the prosecution is going to do everything in their power to keep those 4 people off the witness stand.
Even if you call them?
Even if I call them. I think that they're going to yell about relevance. They're going to yell about their right to take the Fifth Amendment. I think the prosecution is going to do everything in the world to keep those people away from the jury view. I'm going to put them on the stand. I will call them, and I will let the jury see what they were really about, and so that Bernhard Goetz reacted properly.
Full of the hope.
Especially when...
You're from the Apaches. Now the Apaches are called. But the so-called minority, what do they call that group? The Minority Employment Committee. And they're so sensitive. They want to know, what did he say? What did he say? When did he say? We want to hear a tape.
Well, why don't you tell them what you said?
I can't even remember. It was so unimportant. Really. You know, they send somebody in. I'm doing the show. A woman walks in and says, What time was it that you said that? You see, I keep a log of everything I say. I keep a little log. At 5:22, I said this. Mm-hmm. At 5:23, I said that. And then what did you say? I tell you something, Harley. I got to get out of here. I really do. I got to find something else.
Time for a little vacation, that's all.
Time for a long vacation. Long. How dare they ask such a question, those? What are they afraid of? What are they worried about? What are they sensitive about? Are they sensitive because they know that it's silly to have such an organization? What does it mean, the name of that organization? What does it mean?
The main topic, and near the end will come into Justice Burgers. There's a great demand for illegal drugs in the United States, and it proves we are being inundated and outnumbered and outbred by the humanoids, the lowlife, the dumbos, the stunats, the shpushtada, and violent people, which is destroying this nation.
Don't forget Ofashim.
Yeah, this Fashim is right too, Bob. And what's even worse are Kakazot, PDQs, the Shimoni, the Shamgad, the Strupiada, Boca, Sport, politicians, the Fashim, the Tut. They cater to these people. Yeah. And when one of them dies from a drug overdose, they want to eulogize him and bring him up, elevate him to sainthood.
That's the Kakazots are killing us, Al.
Absolutely, Bob, the Kakazots are killing us. And then this leads into Justice Burger. That was a profound statement when he said that people can change anything for the better of the nation. That's true.
Did you see that the Kakazot, Moyers' mouth hang open?
You bad boy. He was a real Kakazot. Shimoni, the Strupiada. I mean it. I'm telling you, that was a really profound. This really prompted the call. And then when they do, but the general public, here's what my answer to Justice Burger. The general public seem to love immensely being chadruls over here. The majority of the churches, the gavons. True, Bob. I hate saying it.
You're calling on the...
My idea is to have maybe like a California girl, like a beautiful girl with a modern statue, maybe at a fiberglass or something like that, and make something beautiful, because I think the Statue of Liberty is really 100 years old, and the technology is a lot better now. Maybe you could have a beautiful face on her, and I think that's a kind of ugly statue anyway. What do you think about that? Maybe you have her...
No, I don't want any more. I don't want any more statues.
Maybe like in a bikini or something like that, maybe?
I tell you what we ought to do, Mike. What we ought to do is have you pose for it. And you could be nude, and it wouldn't make any difference. You jerk. Hello, Bob.
You want the Actors Union hate, Mr. Asna and that group of airheads, including, who's that jerk who used to work on playing, never mind, Alan Alda is a fool, but the other dope who used to play his cohort, the fellow doctor.
Oh, you're talking about Farrell.
Yeah, Farrell.
Yeah.
Farrell,
another airhead.
Yeah, and it just makes me sick when I hear this boob talking about what a wonderful place Nicaragua and how beautifully democratic they're structured.
I understand he keeps
been there for a year.
Right. Listen,
by the way, I'm sorry to cut in on you.
No, we're just running out of time, that's all.
But that goes for Bianca Jagger. Let her live there for the rest of her life.
Hey, Bianca Jagger can't even make page 6 of the Post anymore.
Oh, boy, this is my day.
After 17,421 times. She finally...
What did she do? Fall on her left leg or something?
Thank you very much, Ralph. I love Ralph. Oh.
I'd like to comment on Bernard Goetz.
All right.
While his deed turned out well, let's face it, if he was a kind, Koch would have put him in jail, thrown away the key, would have said he used an illegal weapon, and what he did was illegal. Just like they're doing...
What do you mean Koch would have put him in jail? I thought Koch was the mayor. I didn't know that he was...
Yeah, he forgives everybody, makes...
No, I didn't know Koch put people in jail. I thought he was the mayor. I didn't know he was... I didn't know that he's the guy that put people in jail.
What about the fellow who was...
He
He only defends his own kind, Koch. He doesn't care about anybody else. He puts everybody else, just like city corruption. He's defending them because they're his own kind, and the Italians, he's got them in jail for no reason. They're holding them in jail for no reason.
For no reason who? Who's being held for no reason?
The Italians are put in jail.
No, name a person who's put in jail for no reason.
All the reputed Italians...
No, just name one. Name one.
The ones that they call the Mafia. That they...
Oh, I see. The Colombos did nothing, huh?
Well,
You're making me sick. Not only nervous, but you're making me sick. You know that?
Aren't they in jail?
Listen, I tell you what you ought to do. You ought to take the babushka off your head. Go get your hair done. And
see what city corruption has done.
The city corruption. You know what? You're just an anti-Semite. That's your problem. Hello, Louise.
Hi. I'm not sure I want to follow that.
No, I wish you would. Quick. We'll have some benevolent dictator up there in the sky telling you just how far you can go. That's very good, Betty. Wonderful. I gotta get out of here. That slams the lid on things for today until tomorrow. If I decide to come back, your influence counts. Use it.
He's going at it, trying to hit it from the source rather than the people here in this country.
You're very naive.
Okay.
You're very naive. Education, that's a cliche. How much more education do people need? They get big basketball players, football players, drop dead because they use the stuff. How much education do they need?
Well,
I mean, do you think that they don't know that they're playing with fire? That's part of the allure.
Oh, I'm sure it is. But it's...
Hey, look, there's a segment of our society that is not worth saving because they're low lives. You realize that? And I say give them a firm, strong, undiluted mixture. Let them get the pure stuff. Get rid of them.
But as long as...
If you want to call those, that big business and larger corporations in this country are subsidizing cocaine trafficking.
I've never heard those rumors.
Okay, well, those are some of the rumors I've heard.
Well, you know, you can start a rumor on anything.
True.
Let me ask you a question, though. Try to be logical. Why would they? What would they have to gain since it's a known fact that cocaine users are unreliable people in the workplace, that they have a higher absentee rate?
You've got to, the point well taken. Perhaps then think logically that people within these large organizations who have access to the planes, the jets, the corporation jets, are able, within their own right, to bring about this trafficking. Maybe not so much that the corporations themselves would like to do it, but people being able to utilize their facilities could certainly have access to... Anyway, that's one point. I'd like to make another point.
It wasn't a point. You didn't make a point.
Okay. No.
You just sounded idiotic. That's all.
Okay. I made a speculation. May I make a point now?
I hope so.
Okay. That during the Harbor Festival, and I know this because I'll come right out and say I have used cocaine.
What? You've used cocaine?
Yes. Okay, let me say this, that during...
Well, Kai, no wonder the guy sounds a little disoriented.
All right, but listen, hear me out. That during the Harbor Festival, there was nothing around here.
I'm talking to a cokehead.
There was nothing around here because the military blocked all things, and I'm glad. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm doing my best to get off it, all right?
You're doing your best to get off it?
You better believe it, because it's...
Frank, hello.
Yes, Bob?
Yes, Frank.
You know, Bob, there is a conspiracy going on in this country. A conspiracy of fifth columnists who would like to see this country brought to its knees and stab America's allies in the back. They call themselves liberals. But you know, Bob, when I use the word liberal, I feel dirty. When I use the word liberal, I feel as if I'm being consumed by rats, lice, and other forms of disease-carrying parasitical vermin. But let's call them what they really are. Liars, frauds, hypocrites, traitors, appeasers, who would, if they could, had the chance and the power, rip the golden torch of freedom from the hand of Lady Liberty and replace it with the hammer and sickle. You know, Bob Grant, night after night, we see these hackneys and distorted pictures of what's going on in South Africa. And of course, Bob, that is an extremely emotional issue on both sides. But we must ask ourselves, why are these liberals so obsessed with what's going on in this country compared to the tremendous amount of injustice throughout the rest of the world? And the answer, my friend, is really quite simple. These liberals would like to restore what they consider the glory years of the 1960s, when they protested against South Vietnam, when their miserably sad and empty and pathetic lives had some meaning, some cause for them to exist. So they're trying to reprise the same type of examples that they used at that time. And of course, they're driving this country's foreign policy right down the drain because their sick obsession, their stupidity with sanctions will not weaken South Africa. It will only strengthen it, because that country will not have any sort of dependency or intercourse with this country whatsoever. Once they shut the door on South Africa, they can do exactly what they please. You know, it's not written anywhere that communist insurgency movements such as the ANC have to triumph. Israel proved magnificently in 1982 when they broke the back of the PLO in southern Lebanon that leftist guerrilla movements are extremely vulnerable. And their mistake is that historically they're equating South Africa with South Vietnam. But there's a terrible mistake, and that's for three simple reasons. One, South Africa does not need the United States to build or train its military. It's got the finest army in sub-Saharan Africa. It doesn't need the United States to build its economic or industrial infrastructure. With the help of their magnificent allies to the north of the Transvaal in Israel, they produced the Cheetah jet fighter, which is more than a match for the Soviet MiG-23s that are being used by the Soviet Angolan lackeys. And number three, the most important of all, those people do not need the United States like they did in South Vietnam to give their government a legitimacy in their eyes.
That's right.
So, therefore, Bob Grant, let's not be taken in by these distorted pictures. You know, one more thing. We see nightly rioting going on over there and murders among various groups, and we're told that means they're on civil war. Do you know, Bob Grant, that more people are murdered in the city of New York in 1 year, and I'm just talking about one city in the United States of America, that in all of South Africa since the emergency decree, that if they show Afrikaners living with barred and gated doors, well, Bob Grant, who in their right mind would ever live in New York City and leave his door open at night?
That's an ironic point. Thank you very much, Frank.
You're welcome.
Slams the lid on things for today. Until tomorrow, this is Bob Grant reminding you your influence counts. Use it. Get Ortega. I'd like to salute Martin St. Lawrence. Who's Martin St. Lawrence? Well, he's a pianist at he plays at Harry's Bar at the New York Helmsley, and he spotted that swine, that worm, that snake in the grass, Daniel Ortega, that communist fink, that Soviet stooge, that Castro clone. He spotted him. And what did he do? He started playing God Bless America. And some Americans stood tall. Many at the bars, patrons, stood up and joined right in with their voices. You know, just as the French drowned out the German officers at Rick's Cafe with Le Mercier, remember? I mean, the movie Casablanca. And Ortega marched stonily by. Didn't like it. But I hope if anybody here, anybody listening, ever is tempted to go to any affair where Mary Travers appears, you think twice about it. Here is a person who has enjoyed great financial and artistic success in this country. Here is a person who has never wanted for anything. Here's a person who has become famous, rich. You know, she's the Mary of Peter, Paul, and Mary. Well, she and Peter Yarrow, the Peter of Peter, Paul, and Mary, hosted a party for this Ortega swine, and about 60 fawning admirers were there. And I want you to know who these admirers of Daniel Ortega are. And I want you to promise that you'll never spend one thin American dime to see a Mary Travers performance again. I know what a pinko she is. I recall it at another station when she would occasionally fill in, do a talk show, and I heard her and I couldn't believe it. She never got over the 1960s. Take a look at her dumb hairdo and you'll know that. But who else was there at Mary Travers' apartment? Leonard and Jean Boudin. And that woman we should all be grateful to. If there's ever a runaway train and the engineers don't know how to stop it, we could all put up a photo of her, and I guarantee it would stop that train. Ruth Messenger. Wouldn't you know it? Ruth Messenger. Any leftist cause, any lefto-finko person, there she is. David Dinkins, the Manhattan Borough President. Shame on you, David. I thought you knew better than that. Also included there, kissing Ortega's ankle, Judy Collins, somebody by the name of Little Stephen and his wife Mary Van Zant, and socialist Michael Kennedy and his wife Eleanor, and the inevitable Rabbi Balfour Brickner. By the way, Ortega is reportedly off to Cape Cod this weekend to be toasted at a party by William and Rose Styron. I wouldn't mind if all of the aforementioned lovers of left persons, I wouldn't mind if they would all follow Ortega to Managua. I really wouldn't mind. Unfortunately, they stay here. Unfortunately, they continue to make a lot of American bucks. And unfortunately, they continue to influence a lot of people who don't know any better into thinking that there's no problem here with communism and with the communist influence and with Soviet stooges and with Castro clones. There are a few of us, big mouth like myself, who say, hey, wait a minute, what goes on here? Call your attention to it. And don't forget, Ortega is going to be a guest in Chicago of Jesse Jackson. Now, I've been scouring the files. Somebody wrote and said, surely Jesse Jackson must have said something good about the United States vis-a-vis the Soviet Union or any other nation. Surely at one time he must have said one little teensy thing good about this country. Still haven't been able to find it. Still have not been able to uncover that. We're still looking, though. But we are not holding our respective breath.
In the Rehnquist hearing, whatever you want to call it, this Kennedy, and I got to get this off my chest. The question he asked him about the deeds on the land, if I was Rehnquist, you know what I would answer him? I found out about those deeds about the same time you found out that Oldsmobiles don't float.
Very good.
And then when he's grilling Scalia, he's telling him the same thing. I find your woman's rights record absurd, comparable to Mr. Rehnquist.
Well, the key word is you're insensitive, whatever that means.
Yeah, what's with this woman's rights with this guy? What is he, all of a sudden concerned? How many women he went through in his time? Was he concerned about their rights, too?
Was he concerned about Mary Jo Kopechne? Was he concerned about Joan, his ex-wife?
Exactly. I mean, you know, it's not like I realize the guy has a great minority civil rights record. Very true, yes, but it's not like the guy lives on Charlotte Street. I mean, really. The guy is a little overboard. I would have loved for that guy to give an answer.
I think what I'll tell you the satisfaction I got. The satisfaction I got was when it was revealed that Joe Biden, another sanctimonious liberal, who was ridiculing the restrictive covenants in deeds to two properties that Justice Rehnquist had owned, when it was revealed that he had purchased property in the state of Delaware, which had a restrictive covenant against selling to blacks. Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Notice how quiet Mr. Biden has become
I haven't heard a word
since then.
Neither, right?
Those of you who didn't make it in, and there were many, I do hope we get a chance to talk tomorrow. Until then, this is Bob Grant, reminding you, your influence counts. Use it. Get Ortega!
Arms to the Nazis.
Really?
Oh, the man was...
Really? Where did he supply arms to the Nazis?
Oh.
What evidence do you have that he supplied arms to the Nazis, Murray?
Okay, all that is probably covered up because, like, he's a wealthy man, just like you're a wealthy man. So you all stick up for...
Wait a minute. I asked you a question, you jerk. Where's the evidence that he supplied arms to the Nazis?
You want to know where I get my evidence? And why I think you're full of crap? You want to know why?
You're not worth... Hey, listen, do me a favor, will you, Murray? I mean, quite seriously, Murray, do me a favor. I'll be downstairs in about 25 minutes. Give me a half hour to get some things together. I'll be down on the corner of 6th Avenue and 54th Street. Murray, I want you to stand before me and say, hey, I'm Murray. And then if I think you're worth it, you little pipsqueak, I'll punch your lousy nose down your stupid throat. Get off the phone, you creep! How about Fred on the new York line? Hello, Fred. Is it Fred?
No, it's not.
Okay, whom do I have?
No, this is Vinny from Long Island.
Okay, Vinny, hello.
Pretty good. I'd just like to say, I disagree with you. Hello?
Yeah, you said pretty good. All I said was hello. Vinny, hello.
Hi. Mr. Grant?
Yes.
Yeah. How you doing? I'd like to say I disagree with you about 95% of the time, but I hope you give me a chance to air my views. Why is it that every time someone disagrees with the president of this country or the government in general, that we're accused of being communist or anti-American?
Is somebody picking up an extension phone where you are?
No.
Well, it sounds like it.
No, I'm the only one home.
Would somebody please hang up? Vinny, tell somebody to hang up over there.
I'm telling you, I'm the only one home.
Well, you may be the only one home, but if somebody snuck in downstairs or something. If somebody picked up a phone.
There you go again. I'm telling you, I'm the only one at home.
Yeah, there you go again. Well, it sounds as though you've approached this whole thing with a negative attitude toward me. First of all, when you ask such a question, why is it that whenever anybody... That's not true. People don't get that kind of treatment each and every time.
A lot of times.
But rather, what is it you want to say, Vinny? By the way, is that really your name?
Yes, it is.
How old are you?
23.
At 23, you still want to be called Vinny, huh?
Why not? Should you be called Robert or Bob or Bobby or Robbie?
No, I think the E is immature, but maybe you feel more comfortable being called an immature name.
You make the Italian...
The Italian? What's Italian got to do with it?
The Italian heritage a disgrace.
What has Italian got to do with it?
What?
What has Italian got to do with it?
Just saying.
I beg your pardon?
There you go again, avoiding the issue, just like...
No. You
just avoid the issue.
There you go again. That's a favorite phrase of yours. Did you learn that from the debate with President Reagan and Jimmy Carter?
Ask a legitimate question. There you go, picking on my name and then trying to put...
No, I'm just curious why a 23-year-old man would call himself Vinny.
That's my name.
You were baptized Vinny?
My baptized name was Vincent.
Well, don't you think you should be called Vincent?
Do you think you should be called Robert?
Yes, I like Robert. You can call me Robert.
Well, I like to call you Bob, right? Is this the...
All right, you can call me Bob. Call me anything you want. You're a cajon, that's for sure. I'm the...
A bus, and I forget where it was in yesterday's Star Ledger. A bus full of medics from the National Guard going down to Central America. Now, here are these medics going down to help the people down there, and these people who are picketing them don't want them to go down, and help the people, but they want to help the people and they don't know how. It just doesn't seem right.
Yeah, but these were people who were, not that you should excuse it, but these were people who were put up to it by a bunch of Ortega-loving scum. I wouldn't even call them Americans. You know that, don't you?
Jesse's friend.
Huh?
Messy Jesse's friend.
Of course. Of course.
Yeah.
How appropriate on a day they show a Jane Fonda movie on the ABC television network, which portrayed every operator of a nuclear plant as an evil fiend. No, it's a Cuomo stooge. That's
what I figured. Do you put any stock in this, or is it?
Yes.
You do?
Yeah.
You don't think it's just wind blowing, huh?
No.
Okay.
No, things are that bad that I think Fred Dicker is absolutely right.
Oh, that's a shame, though. When you...
Well, and the story that he tells about the state of the Republicans, I can tell you that that's certainly true also. They are in complete disarray. Ever since George Clark left, they are leaderless, rudderless.
Right.
All they have is a very good comedian from Westchester County by the name of Tony Calavita, who is, I tell you, Dom DeLuise, you better look out because Calavita is about as wide and about as funny.
Further down in the column, Bob, it says that the Emperor looks like Mario the Magnificent says it's all over for Eddie.
Yeah.
Nothing to worry about, no.
As I predicted, the Emperor would come out of this unscathed.
Yeah, it came out snow like a rose.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess that's how it goes, huh, Bob?
Well, the populational representation is in the House of Representatives, but the entire state is in the Senate.
Yeah, but the influence.
I'll tell you what. Okay, George. George, look.
Political cloud is in the
George,
Senate, not as
answer to your question.
As it is in the Senate.
Would somebody please... all right, George, I'm trying to tell you that the only way to get around that would be a constitutional amendment. It's never going to happen. Yeah, I wonder if George is married, and if so, maybe his wife never gets a word in edgewise. Well, that slams the lid on things for today. Until tomorrow, this is Bob Grant reminding you, your influence counts. Use it. Get Ortega. Remote. Ladies and gentlemen, Mario the Magnificent, the presidential candidate in waiting, who is assured of a thumping, huge victory at the polls, which will probably create even more hubris in the already hubris-laden person, must be feeling even more invincible now that he's knocked off Abe Hirschfeld from the ballot. I suspect that the governor will sleep better tonight. Doesn't have to worry about poor Abe. Wouldn't that have been awful if the Democrats had been allowed to choose between Hirschfeld, the independent Democrat, and Lundin, the handpicked, I won't say stooge, but you understand what I'm driving at, the handpicked clone of the governor? Here's a guy who walks around saying he believes in the democratic process, that people should have the right for preference. Here's a guy who walks around saying, put the name on a ballot, I'll beat him at the polls. But he was so afraid of Abe Hirschfeld that he did everything he could to knock him off the ballot. And so Lundin walks in the governor's shadow. And Lundin has got to be feeling very good because, from what I gather, Stanley Lundin feels that come January 1989, he will be taking the oath of office as the governor of the state, while his mentor and patron takes the oath of office as president of all the United States. But even the New York Times, which of course has the same ultra-liberal bent as the governor, even the New York Times sees through the governor's act, the governor's guise, the governor's pose, when it comes to the so-called crackdown on crack dealers, I quote in part the sanctimonious Times. Lock them up for life. That's what many people would like to do with crack dealers. Governor Cuomo of New York proposes life sentences for those who would sell this addictive, destructive drug to our children. But a close look discloses a good deal less. The governor's proposal offers only, now get a load of this, superficial reassurance and negligible effect on criminal behavior. Existing law prescribes a punishment of from 1 to 25 years for selling any amount of crack, the highly addictive cocaine derivative. Mr. Cuomo would increase this to 3 years to life, and he claims a dramatic blow against drugs. My foot. The change only sounds serious. Few convicts ever get the maximum. But that's typical of the presidential candidate. Typical, my friends. And like a fool, I continue to be out here all by myself and even challenging the governor.
Myself and some friends about countries going communist in the world. And one of the things we came up with, I'd like to hear your comments on this. Well, first of all, the standard of living in a lot of these third world countries is less than $1 a day. You know their income and...
What countries went communist by choice?
Huh? By choice?
Yeah.
Cuba.
By choice? They went communism by choice. There was a vote. The people voted.
Well, the people revolted.
The people revolted? Or did Fidel Castro and a handful of his gang in the Sierra Maestra?
I couldn't agree to Cuba. In many countries, I'll agree to all of Europe that was taken over by the Russians.
Taken over, yes.
They raped through Russia after World War II and grabbed all of the...
Yes.
Roosevelt helped them a lot, but the Yalta betrayal. But that I agree. But Cuba,
I didn't know that they had a vote. When did they vote for communism?
Kennedy would. Why didn't Kennedy support?
Why is it every time I ask you a question, you get a little more shrill?
Well, because.
I'll tell you why. Because you realize you're making a faux pas.
No.
No.
Well, at least I've been taught in every school that I've ever went to.
I'd ever went to?
That's correct.
You mean that I'd ever gone to?
Okay, that I'd ever gone to. Okay. Thank you for the grammatical faux pas.
I mean, for a guy that went to all those schools, you would have thought your grammar would be a tad better.
Well, we were not talking grammar. We were talking politics.
Really? Is that what we were talking?
Let me get back to Cuba for a second. Kennedy, Bay of Pigs. The Cubans, with our support, are coming over to retake their island. Kennedy pulls back his support. And everyone that I know has told me, every book that I can read has said that the reason he did not support it was because he was told that the people in the streets are coming out with pitchforks, with knives, with sticks, with anything to support Castro. And I'm not, for some reason I think you're interpreting this as me being pro-communist.
No, I'm not interpreting
that. Because I'm certainly not. My call was to...
No, I don't want to defer you. I don't want to delay you.
But I think that country...
Quite the contrary. I'd like you to expedite this call because the adenoids are beginning to get me down.
Because I'm talking about a country that
it's the
went
adenoids.
Communist on purpose?
It's the adenoids. The adenoids.
I think that you don't like that anybody could choose communism. I don't think... Well, if you were a third world farmer making 35 cents a day and looking at your next door communist...
We went down from $1 a day to 35 cents a day.
You'd go communist too.
Let me save everybody a lot of time. John, you are the quintessential Cavone. I want to congratulate you.
Yes, I know.
I want to congratulate you. Hello, David.
Oh, I read in the papers that Mario Cuomo said that he couldn't sleep if Abe Hirschfeld would be his second man. Can you explain what that means? Couldn't sleep, that Lieutenant Governor is such a...
Well, that means, if you notice the bags under his eyes, it means that the bags under his eyes would become suitcases. That's his snide way of telling the people that, hey, look, you want me to be president, don't you? Well, you don't want me to leave for Washington and leave the state in charge of this immigrant that can't talk straight, do you? In other words, he has such a low opinion of Abe Hirschfeld and is so embarrassed by Abe Hirschfeld that he feels the rest of the people would conclude the same thing. What he overlooks is that Abe Hirschfeld came here with nothing, and following the American prescription, or the Horatio Alger romance, he made something of himself because he's a good businessman, and he's a smart guy, and he works hard. I think we could erect a medal to Mr. O'Rourke if Mr. O'Rourke would say, let's save the money on the election and just anoint him. Just anoint him. We could get, let's see, who could we get? We get the Pope over here because Mario wanted to be a cardinal as well. We could make him a cardinal, governor, president, all rolled into one. Bob Grant reminding you, your influence counts. Use it. Get Ortega.
Junior, I agree with you.
Okay. Oh, and Ray Bream at 3 in the morning.
Okay.
Okay? Set your clock and listen to Ray at 3 o'clock. Don't waste your time the guy ahead of him.
No. Okay.
Okay?
I agree with that too, Bob.
All right, thank you.
Thanks a lot, Bob.
Okay. And another good thing about listening to Ray Bream, you don't have to hear that political moron who's on opposite him. Larry King!
I'm sitting here this afternoon listening to you and your guests talk. I'm sitting here because I had both my legs blown off in Vietnam. Okay? And I sit here and I'm just sick and tired of hearing you intellectuals, or, well, in your case, I don't know about that, but sit around and be willing to shed more of our bodies and blood in other countries. There's enough that needs to be done in this country. You know, now, obviously, I'm...
Howard, first of all, we don't know that you had both your legs blown off. You could easily be saying that. You could easily be saying that to get the sympathy of the audience. And if you're doing that, then you're reprehensible. If it really happened...
That's not the case.
If it really happened, I'm sorry that you had your legs blown off, but that doesn't give you a license to act like your head was blown off, too.
Gives you a license.
That's number one. Number two, there's no draft.
Okay, what?
There's no draft, so nobody's drafting.
In the war?
You're a phony and a fake.
Phony.
You're a phony and a fake.
You know that? Yeah.
No, you really are, Howard. You're a phony and a fake.
You know, okay, fine. I'll meet you anywhere you want, and I'll show you my two legs, okay?
Big deal. Big deal. You'll meet me anywhere. I don't want to meet you, Howard. I don't even want to talk to you because you're confusing the issue.
And people are getting sick and tired of it, and your days are numbered.
My days are... What is that, a threat, Howard? Howard, is that a threat?
No, the audience is getting sick and...
Really? I didn't know that. According to the latest ratings, just the opposite is true, Howard. You know, and Howard, if it's so sickening, why do you listen?
I told you because I'm sitting here and I am...
Blah, 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 blah. Hello, Lillian. Mark White. And I'd like to congratulate the Attorney General of the state of Texas, the U.S. Supreme Court, and the citizens of the Lone Star State. Unlike the feckless putrefaction that resides in New Jersey, and I'm not talking about the governor, I'm talking about the rest of New Jersey. Unlike New Jersey, which also has a death penalty on the books, Texas is not afraid to use it. They have executed their third mutant this week. Convicted rapist. Now get a load of this. Get a load of this. Chester Lee Wicker, 37 years old, a ninth grade dropout, a drug user, and a collector of pornography since the age of 13. You know what he did? He raped a woman and then buried her alive. That was the way he murdered her. Well, in Huntsville, Texas, they gave him the lethal injection. It's execution by lethal injection. Now I congratulate Governor White and everybody in the state of Texas for their courage in using the only penalty that is appropriate for the type of vermin represented by Chester Lee Wicker. As long as we have the Mario the Mauler up there in Albany, we'll never have a death penalty on the books in New York. But even if you do have it on the books, as they do in New Jersey, so what? Doesn't mean anything if you don't use it. Think about it. Change, I think, is preferable to what we have. And I'll tell you why I say that.
Right.
I know some real Mariul Spacones.
Oh, yes.
And they don't like this tax bill. I know guys, you know the broker, Harry Hazarai of Ganoff and Schlemiehlenthal?
Right.
The guy who pitches a tent in Hewlett because they won't let him build a home. They don't want him in the neighborhood.
Right.
Well, that Mariul doesn't like this tax bill because he's able to write off yachts, Mets tickets, Yankee tickets, booze. I mean, things, you know, he gets up in the middle of the night. He says, and he jots on his nightstand, he jots down 2:07 a.m., turned over, deduct 50 cents. I mean, that's, you get my point?
I get your point, and that's, the people should realize that we all make up for this.
Well, and they're doing away with that, at least.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, Mr. Hazarai of Ganoff and Schlemiehlenthal, license number 609 SOB. No, really, there is such a person. I'm slightly disguising him. He knows who he is.
Yeah, I'm sure.
With his head, his head really comes to a point. They call him Mr. Pazzola. Anyway, no, really, there is such a low-life skunk, and.
In fact, I wish there was only one. There's a lot more.
Well, he's the personification of all the others. You understand?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Well, you're very welcome. You're very welcome.
And listen, keep stepping on those jadrules.
But I will. I'll wipe them out just as quick as I can. Okay. And God.
Okay. Taking telephone calls. I didn't plan it this way, but we have been devoting these hours, the hour from 4 to 5, and then from 5 to 6, these hours, to, well, how am I doing? I didn't plan it that way, as I say, but it seems though every now and then people want to give me report cards. Now, that doesn't mean that tomorrow or the next day or next week or next month you can't comment on how I'm doing. You can comment on how I'm doing just about any time you wish. But we are focusing virtually exclusively on this issue.
Yankee Stadium Friday night, and I don't know if you heard, one of the players last night was hit with a knife. Did you?
One of the players was hit with a knife.
Somebody threw a 4 or 5 inch Bowie knife out of the stands and hit one of the players at the end of the game.
On which team?
It wasn't the Yankees, it was the other team that were playing last night.
The California Angels?
Correct.
That happened last night?
Yep. And in fact, I can't think of the fellow that was hit. He said, thank God we're getting out of New York. Anyhow, I was at Yankee Stadium Friday night with my son. First time in quite a few years. And the fan conduct there, and the drinking, and the language was unbelievable. I don't think I'd ever go back. I went to the Giant Jet game. And the drinking at that was unbelievable. We pulled into the parking lot. I went with my son. If I saw one person, I saw 50 publicly urinating all over the parking lots. You know, they have these tailgate parties.
Yes.
Between cars, on lampposts, up against fences.
You know, there was a time when a person would, out of necessity, out of sheer necessity,
I could understand.
try to be as discreet as possible, and would take all kinds of precautions to be discreet.
I understand.
Now, I'll tell you, I dropped some people off at Newark Airport, and there, standing brazenly, openly, defiantly, was a young gentleman, my point, a male, doing what you said.
Yeah.
And I didn't even attempt to be secretive about it. I mean, it's incredible.
Well, I'll tell you.
I understand that the player, the Angel player, was the home run hitter, that probably rookie of the year, Wally Joyner. I understand it was him.
Yes, that's it.
Class, make a long story short, I got to say something that doesn't come easy. But the fans in this area are the worst. They are the worst. You ask any athlete who plays in every American League city or every National League city, and in this area, they are the lowlives to end all lowlives. And they don't deserve winning teams because they stink. I'm talking about these schkiboozes, these cavones who go out to the stadium. It's Bob Grant reminding you, your influence counts. Use it. Get Gaddafi, get Ortega, get all those skunks. I would not categorize them all in the same camp. I've known conservative homosexuals. I've known liberal homosexuals.
Well, I'm not saying that homosexuals are all conservative. I think they're mostly liberals, actually. But, can you really regard what this guy said in this fight against communism and the American way? And the fact is, he was a homosexual?
I come here to bury Caesar, not to praise him. Look it up. It's in Julius Caesar by William Shakespeare. Mark Antony's speech where he says, friends, Romans, countrymen. That's what you're pulling, you two-bit phony creep. Get off my phone! Hello, Lee.
Hello, Mr. Grant. I'm a little insecure. I have trouble communicating. I wanted to talk to a psychologist. I want to talk to you. Maybe you could help me out here.
I'm listening.
I'd like to know, do you think...
this ought to be good, folks. This guy's auditioning.
Pardon me, sir?
What a fake. Where are you supposed to be from, fake?
Puzzle Park.
What?
Puzzle Park.
You know why he's all upset? Because the picnic he was planning for tonight at Crotona Park has been canceled. The Crotona Park picnic has been canceled due to wet grass.
You really, come up with a deal. I think we could come up with a deal.
Oh, you're so naive. You're part of the problem. Guys like you who still keep thinking that somehow or other the Soviet Union has changed, that somehow or other they've become sincere. My foot to laugh at the hypocrisy implicit in what you say about SDI. You put it down as saying it's baseless, it's has no foundation, it's not feasible. If that's the case, then what does the Soviet Union worry for? The Soviet Union ought to be happy to see us spend $8 billion on something that's not feasible. And yet they worry about it night and day.
Hey, may I respond?
You can't have it both ways.
Hey, Bob, may I respond?
Of course.
Oh, okay, good. Now, number one, as far as the thing working or not working, it's going to take absolutely decades. As a matter of fact, even General Abramson has said it'll take at least deep into the 1990s before...
Absolutely. If they said they could produce it overnight, I would be suspicious.
And that then seems to just ignore our triad, which also includes Strategic Air Command and also includes our Trident submarines and Polaris submarines, which are being converted into Trident submarines. So, I mean, in terms of us being worried or not having enough of a thrust back, it's ridiculous. And what it's going to do, it's going to absolutely obviate all the treaties that we've had that the Russians have to about 97% complied with. I mean, really, I don't understand it. What do you want to do to the Russians?
What do I want to do? I don't want to do anything, but I don't want them to do anything to us. And you could take your, ladies and gentlemen, we just had a throwback to the 1950s, 1960s mentality of lunkheads like this guy with the gravel voice who really hasn't learned from recent history.
First of all, Bob, no.
By the way, the Tooth Fairy will be at your home tonight. Call in tomorrow and tell us what he left under your pillow, you dumbbell.
I really don't understand why you keep referring to Stanley Lundeen as Mario Cuomo's stooge. Now, I've seen him on many talk shows, and to me, he just does not seem like, say, a political phony or a stooge.
Well, said, Stanley, I want you to be my running mate. I want you to be the lieutenant governor. And I'll see to it that you get that spot. Instead of being brave enough to test Lundeen's ability in a general primary election, he makes sure he gets Abe Hirschfeld, poor old Abe Hirschfeld, knocked off the ballot.
Yes.
All right, what do you mean one can't consider him? Is there something wrong about him?
What?
Is there something wrong about him? Something funny about him?
No, nothing like that. I'm just saying he even admitted that his petitions were not correct.
Under New York state law, they had a very specious ruling there, but that's beside the point. The point is, until Cuomo went to work on getting the guy knocked off, he was on the ballot.
Yes, but...
You're missing the whole point!
What are you being so rude to me?
Rude?
Yes.
How can... rude. Ted, first of all, take your thumb and your middle finger and remove them from your nose. I don't know why you're holding your nose.
I mean, what is all this? You want me to talk... I don't subscribe to...
That's correct.
What is all that? What's the matter?
Anything else?
Why don't you get rid of your adenoids, Stan?
He say something else then. Okay? I just think that Hirschfeld, or Abraham Hirschfeld, the man is a millionaire businessman who, if anything, he wants to be lieutenant governor, possibly as, who knows, use it as his own toy. He's not a politician.
Good. We don't want a politician.
But he's a $500 million joke.
Oh, I see. No, first you said you weren't putting him down. Now you say he's a $500 million joke.
I'm just saying my opinion of him.
Why did you reverse yourself?
I did not. I said that if he had the petitions right, he had every right to be on the ballot.
When you become old enough to vote, I'm sure I know who you'll vote for. Fortunately, you can't participate in this election.
Just a liberal. That's all.
Yeah, that's all.
All right, there goes Ted and his pal, Jiminy Cricket.
So who's yours?
Ted, are you there? Yeah. There you go. Whatever happened to Pinocchio? I gotta get out of here.
Yes, I'm calling with regards to Robert Chambers, the young man that they think probably...
What do you mean they think? He confessed. What's everybody talking so gingerly for?
Well, the Post mentions that there's no evidence and that he confessed and probably is going back on his confession now.
Let him go back on his confession. What about it?
Well, what I wanted to say...
Boy, I tell you, people have gotten so intimidated by the criminal element in the world, it's amazing. I'm getting sick of it. What do you want to say, Grady?
Well, what I...
From New Jersey. I recently read the latest cloud over the head of John Zuccaro.
Yes, the latest in many clouds.
That's right, the one of many, and there will probably be more. But, of course, the liberal media protects the Zuccaro-Ferraro combination. And therefore I'm wondering, or at least a thought came to my mind, as to what is the current status of their progeny called the pharmacist.
The status...
Protecting him the way they do the Duke of Chappaquiddick?
Well, yeah, in all likelihood, he will not get quite the protection because he's not royalty, whereas the Duke, of course, is royalty.
I see.
But since he is of the nobility and the cognoscenti, he will get preferential treatment. My prediction has been all along that he will not serve any real time. It'll be one of these cockamamie community services things. Maybe he'll meet Bob Evans of Paramount at a racetrack or something when they talk about the virtues of not using cocaine or something.
I see. But that case is still pending.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Don't forget, the governor of Vermont is a Democrat and a friend of Zaccaro Ferraro.
Yes.
And it's kind of like a mushbuka thing there. It's all in the family.
Yeah.
Quote a former television program.
Talk to you about is that homosexual affair you had as a college graduate, as a college student with your professor. Remember that affair you had, that homosexual affair?
Here's a guy who tells our producer he wants to talk about the KH spy satellite, and he comes on with his shtick.
Evading the issue. Stop evading the issue.
I thought you were the other guy.
The issue. What prompted...
I thought you were the other guy.
What prompted you to go in the Navy? What prompted you to go in the Navy?
By the way, where are you from, Stan? Or are we going to have a problem with you?
Isn't it a uniform that prompted you to go in the Navy?
Here we go. We're going to have to deport another guy.
I say, isn't it the uniform that prompted...
Shrimp boats is a-comin', da-da-dee-da-da.
Isn't it the uniform that prompted you to go into the Navy, that femininity?
You know what I don't understand here is why this guy called. The studio is very clean. We don't need anybody to straighten it out. We didn't call maintenance.
Why you went into the Navy? Talk about it. Let's talk about it.
Hey, talk about it. Who's got you by the jaw? Who's holding you on your jaw? Who's keeping you from talking, huh? Hey, talk about it. The homosexual. I'll give you a homosexual. You freak. Get off my phone. Hello, Craig.
How are you doing?
How am I? Well.
Sounds like you're having a good day.
Well, I don't know, Craig. What the heck? It's another day I avoided working for a living, so it's another good day.
No,
Slams the lid on things for today until tomorrow. This is Bob Grant reminding you your influence counts. Get Gaddafi, get Ortega, get all those skunks. Ladies and gentlemen, the insanity that is engulfing us, that will eventually force us to turn to a dictatorship, and is one of the reasons that, or I say, somewhere around the year 2000, we won't even recognize this country, is occurring by leaps and bounds in all aspects of our lives. And during the 5 o'clock hour, that's round 4 of our get-together, I'm going to pinpoint some insanity going on in the Connecticut prison. I want to assure you that what I will tell you from Connecticut is absolutely true. I'm not fabricating the stories at all, not even embellishing. But you're going to hear a couple of stories that you're going to find unbelievable. But you had better believe it, and you had better insist that the bleeding heart jerks responsible for the sorry pass we've come to do something about it. At the very least, your tax dollars are being used to destroy you. You bet. It's insane, but it's true. Sam Villette spent the better part of a recent night hunched over 6 thick manila files, working well into the morning preparing legal arguments for some upcoming hearings. Now, you've got to follow this. And by the way, this is all sadly too true. Villette is 20 years old. He never went to law school, has never addressed a jury, has little courtroom experience, but he's confident that with a little more research at the Connecticut Prison Law Library, he'll be able to present his case. What is his case? You're not going to believe it, but 18 months ago, he walked into Joseph Simone's Ansonia, Connecticut jewelry store. He pointed a .22 caliber pistol at Simone. He tried to rob Mr. Simone. But guess what? Now he's suing Mr. Simone, the guy he tried to rob, for $750,000. This skunk is just one of a number of so-called jailhouse lawyers, inmates of the state's prison system, who, thanks to your tax dollars and thanks to the ACLU and other bleeding heart jerks, familiarize themselves with certain aspects of the law and represent themselves in suits and appeals. Now, though the study of law among prisoners is nothing new, Villette's case has taken a bizarre twist. He is actually suing the victim of his crime. He's seeking damages for being shot while committing the robbery. I tell you, this is one big funny farm. As a matter of fact, Villette, whose youthful appearance and demeanor would fit in any college campus, said he had been teaching himself law to protect his rights and change a criminal justice system he feels is unfair. He said he still is in pain from the shooting and often has nightmares about it. Too bad he didn't croak. But Mr. Simone feels that while everyone has a right to sue, Villette has gone a little too far. And what does Ansonia Police Chief James McGrath say? He says what Bob Grant says. He says it's absolutely absurd for someone convicted of a crime to be able to sue his victim. And while Villette's newly acquired legal skills will cost him little or nothing and help fill the void of prison life, what about his victim? What about poor Mr. Simone? Well, he's going to have to dole out thousands of dollars in lawyer's fees to defend himself. Each new legal motion brings Simone unwanted publicity. And although police firmly maintain Simone shot Villette in self-defense, every media account of Villette's suit could raise questions in the minds of Simone's friends and neighbors. And each court hearing reminds Simone and his family of an episode they have tried very hard to forget. Poor Mr. Simone says it's his right to sue. Well, what about our rights, huh? This guy commits a crime, and now he wants to make money off that crime. People think it's a joke, but it's a joke that isn't funny. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we are responsible for this obscenity taking place. We are responsible because we keep electing too doggone many skunk liberal bleeding heart jerks who appoint bleeding heart jerk judges. And we are responsible because we don't fight the ACLU, the American Criminal Liberties, the American Civil Liberties Union. There are other cases equally bizarre. There's the case of Robert J. Durham. Who's Robert J. Durham? Robert J. Durham is serving 12 years for a sexual assault conviction. You don't get 12 years for a case like this unless you're bad. And Durham's bad. Otherwise, he wouldn't be where he is. He, too, is up to some legal shenanigans. And I won't go into his case right now because I went a little too long, perhaps, in talking about Villette's case. But we'll keep an eye on this, and if need be, I'd like to organize some committee to help Mr. Simone with his legal fee. Why should he? I mean, hey, look, he's in his store, right? His store, Simone's Gold and Diamond Exchange. It's February 21st. It's 1985. And Villette and Eugene Vedok walk into Mr. Simone's store. They browse through the store for about 45 minutes. Mr. Simone and his lovely wife were both in the store. Villette eventually pulls out a loaded pistol. And the two of these skunks announce, "This is a stick-up." Well, the quickly unfolding series of events after that are the main focus of Villette's suit. Prosecutors say Simone shot Villette in the abdomen after Vedok told his companion to kill Simone. Villette claims he was shot in the buttocks and he was shot while he was fleeing the store. Well, what the hell is the difference? If he was shot while he was facing him or running out, he had no business going in there holding the guy up. Villette and Vedok were each sentenced to 5 years in prison after pleading guilty to attempted first-degree robbery. You see how stupid the law is? Because they didn't get away with it, it became only attempted, and it was far less. Far less. It's just like if you shoot a guy, make him look like a Swiss cheese, he can never walk again like poor officer Stephen McDonald. But because he survived, it's attempted murder. Would you please, Jimmy, please find me a country that has some sanity, if there is any. I got to get out of here. Can't stand living in such a place. Oh, dear me. Well, anyway, we'll keep an eye on that call. The moral of all of this, by the way, for those of you who have jewelry stores or you're merchants of any kind, please get a Magnum, get a 9mm Magnum, and take target practice every night. And shoot to kill. If he had killed this skunk, his troubles would be over, and so would the Connecticut taxpayers' troubles. And by the way, Villette will be out in just a couple of years. What do you think he's going to do when he gets out? Yeah. Mr. Golden has a great idea. Let's all wait. Let's be a reception committee as he comes out. Does anybody have an Uzi? I'll even pay for the dumb thing. No. I don't want it. Take it back. Just happened to think about a former city councilman I know that wound up with about 3 or 4 Uzis with silencers, and he's doing a hard time at Danbury. No, thanks. By the way, one thing, I'm not a traffic reporter, but one thing I do want to warn you about avoiding. If you have any self-respect, if you have any regard for your sensitivities, if you are a clod, if you are a gabon, then this is not for you. But if you have even a modicum, a smidgen, a residue of self-respect, let me warn you, don't watch Channel 5. Don't watch Channel 5 from Sunday, August 31st, 9 p.m. until September 1st, that's Monday, 7 p.m. Because if you do, you will subject yourself to the banal, predictable, absolutely embarrassing spectacle of America's foremost egomaniac in a vast ocean of egomaniacal personalities doing his psychotic performance. In short, it's that dumb affront to our intelligence called the Jerry Lewis Telethon. I have to be careful that anybody who may be in the domicile with me does not turn to Channel 5, even in switching from one channel to another. I don't want to see 1 second of it. I find it to be an obscenity, an abomination. I find it to be ludicrous. And I think that Jerry Lewis is a pain in the you-know-where. And I'll tell you something is drastically wrong in the state of Connecticut when you have this fellow Gold tried 4 times now, 4 times for a murder he clearly, a devastating murder he clearly is guilty of. He's been convicted all these times. They keep throwing it out on technicalities. Those pathetic, bleeding heart, pipsqueak, Lowell Weicker, Chris Dodd type individuals, and the appellate court, they keep overturning these convictions.
Well, Mr. Grant,
yes.
I just want to say I enjoy your program, except for one thing. You keep talking about us toll collectors. I'm a former toll collector at the Lincoln Tunnel, and...
yeah, but you're a male. Let me tell you something. At the risk of sounding discriminatory, I never had trouble with men toll collectors. Never.
Well, one thing you have to realize about...
It's always a certain type of woman.
Okay, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
All right, but let me explain what toll collectors at the Port Authority anyway. It's an entry-level job, and most, I would say at least 80% of the people there don't want to be doing that job for long. They're all looking for promotions. As myself, I have gone out of tolls, and they want other jobs, and so...
Yes, as a matter of fact, you're right. They are looking for promotions. I know a couple of them said they wanted to make Oberleutnant.
Excuse me?
Oberleutnant.
I don't understand what that means.
Commandante. The fact of the matter is they have that mentality.
Yeah, but...
I say mentality laughingly. Come to think about it, there is no mentality.
Well...
They're brutal nerds. They really are. They really are. I despise them. I'd like to get an Uzi and just go through the booth every now and then and just spray the booth.
Well, like I said, I don't know
what the heck you're calling for. First of all, you're retired, right?
No, I'm not retired. I've gone on to other jobs.
Really?
Authority, yes.
You're up in the tower now with a machine gun.
I overlook the whole operation, right?
No, you know what it is? A lot of these people, they come from, first of all, they are subhuman. You can tell just by looking at them. Secondly, they feel a sense of power. Suddenly, they have motorists who have to stop and give them something. You realize that? That sense of power. And all they have to do is say, wait a minute, let me see that. And you got to show them that the date of expiration hasn't been reached. You got to show them that it's the same license number. Well, big deal.
A lot of people I would say at least 95% of the toll collectors. Now, be honest with me. Now, if you have one of those books, wouldn't you say about 95% don't even look at what you're showing at them? I know I never did.
Well, that's it. That proves the point. You are a man.
It is to be.
You are a man, and I said the men don't bother you. It's the women. Didn't you hear me say that?
Yes, I did.
All right. Where do you live?
Oh, Jersey City.
Jersey City? Mm-hmm. Hey, parts of that town are wall-to-wall Bob Grant country. Other parts, they don't even speak the language. Listen.
Whitman.
Trumped-up charge. And, of course, the reason they have arrested this particular reporter, this correspondent for U.S. News and World Report, is very obvious. Because we nabbed red-handed a red fink spy in this country, and this is the way the Kremlin does business. But we keep going back for more, don't we? We keep hoping against hope. And there are still people in this country who say we should understand the Soviets. Understand what? Understand the fact that they're paranoidal imperialist swine? We'll never learn. We really won't. And that is why the future of the West inevitably is not a bright one. That slams the lid on things for today. Until tomorrow, this is Bob Grant reminding you, your influence counts. Use it. Get Gorbachev.
Yeah. I watched Channel 7 last night, and I was shocked to see you Downs. I mean, it was shocking. I don't know if you watched 2020. Did you watch it last night?
I didn't see it, but I'm just as glad that I didn't, because I've been told that Downs made an absolute jerk of himself on his bended knee in the presence of Jesse the Jerk. Is that true?
But yes, it is true. It is true. But the last, he showed each country, and they put down what each country is. Slightly leftist. He had, what is his name, Michelle or Michael from
from Mozambique, which had come to this country. What a wonderful person. And he went down each country. It was sickening. But the last line that Hugh Downs gave was a lie. He said, here were some negative things. We cut off aid to Zimbabwe. And the reason we did that was because on July 4th, one of their people, one of their representatives...
Right. He castigated the United States so badly that even Jimmy Carter had to walk out.
See that?
Yeah.
No, Hugh Downs said he castigated South Africa. That was the mistake.
Well, Hugh Downs is not qualified. Hugh Downs is not qualified to do that program.
Yes, that's true. Now, in the Times picks up a story today. We shouldn't cut off aid to Zimbabwe because under Mugabe's leadership, it remains one of Africa's success stories. The truth is that they had a better form of life, a better standard of living when they were under the Ian Smith regime, and they've lowered it under this. And if the Times says, yes, we have a wonderful success story there, then why are we sending them aid? What do they need our aid for?
Right, you are. Well, maybe they told him he was really there to introduce Jack Parr. Who knows? Listen, Al.
They had on Michael Barnes, who said, let's cut off aid to Chile. He looks just like Jerry Studd. They look alike. And Michael Barnes says, let's get rid of the aid to Chile. Whatever friends we have, whether it be Savimbi, Honduras, whether it be South Korea, whatever our friends, the liberals are always blasting them. In the paper the other day, Mobutu was our friend in Zaire giving aid to Savimbi. But they have human rights violations. This was in the New York Times the other day.
Yep, you got it. You got their number. Al, you got their number. Thanks for calling. Well, that slams the lid on things for today and for this week. Until Monday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon when Bernard Goetz will be our special in-studio guest. Until then, this is Bob Grant reminding you, your influence counts. Use it. Get Gaddafi!
This article, the governor is quoted as saying that the First Amendment doesn't allow us to make the whole country Catholic. And I've heard this on your program. What I'm about to say, I heard on your program before, Bob. And I heard it in other places, but since when is abortion only a Catholic issue? I mean, isn't Ronald Reagan against abortion? And I think he's a Presbyterian, isn't he?
Well, it shows you how naive Mario the Magnificent can be. For all his vaunted brilliance, that's a Gabon comment coming from him, because there is widespread opposition to abortion from, I think the governor is being absolutely idiotic.
Yeah, well, it seems to me that he's replaying greatest hits of the Kennedy administration. I mean, there was a much ballyhooed Kennedy church-state conflict.
They tried to make it a conflict, and John Kennedy, the great adulterer, wasn't going to be caught in that box.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Well, it just seems to me that instead of, Cuomo, he's not debating, and he doesn't believe in free elections, considering what he did to Abe Hirschfeld. It just seems this big media play, which makes him this big, powerful man, and I don't believe it for a second.
You know, Mario Cuomo has an obvious weakness, an obvious flaw in his character, and that is he's not able to resist letting success go to his head. And he looks at the polls, which stay steady at about 70% approval in the state of New York, and he realizes that what's left of the Republican Party in the state is totally scared stiff of him. He feels like the guy who stands in the middle of the ring and he says, "Come on, anybody ready to take me on?" And John L. Sullivan, I can lick any man alive. That type thing. And everybody's afraid of him. So he feels, well, everybody's afraid of me. That means I'm Superman. What he's going to find out when he tries to go national is that the rest of the country, unlike the state of New York, is not mesmerized by his shtick.
Okay, Bob.
And that's the thing that's going to save us from him, is the rest of the country, because the people here in New York are absolutely absurd, mesmerized.
Curious if you ever read Shirley MacLaine's books, Dancing in the Light and Out on a Limb. Shirley
MacLaine has nothing of value to say. Shirley MacLaine is a political nincompoop, a total moron. And Shirley MacLaine is either A, very crafty and shrewd and knows that, and has contempt for the public because she knows they will believe anything, or Shirley MacLaine is a very ill person. This is not to say she's not talented, because unfortunately she's loaded with talent.
I'm listening to you for years, and I said to myself, what do you think Bob Grant is going to say? And you said exactly what I knew you were going to say. You were going to call her a nut.
Yeah, she's a boob. She's an absolute boob. A political moron, you know. And they were all a bunch of morons that went to Barbara Streisand's fundraiser for left-wing candidates the other day. You know what I don't understand? If the Democrat Party is supposed to be the party of the little guy, why is it so many rich slobs are Democrats? Take John Dyson, for example. $30 million. He's got $30 million. He tried to... he spent almost $6 million trying to defeat Mark Green.
And part of this hijacking has more or less turned all my ideals and values upside down. The captain of an airplane hightailing it out of the plane.
Good for him.
You really think so?
You're cutting a right.
Well, isn't there a responsibility of a captain to think of his passengers?
What was he going to do on board? Was he going to stay on board so that those savages would say, all right, we got the pilot here, take off? Best thing he could have done was get out of there.
Well, do you remember the French pilot at Atty who refused to leave until all his passengers were safe? Oh, yes and no. But it seems to me that a captain has some responsibility. I grant he could have told his crew to hightail it out. But he himself, I can't understand it. See?
I'm going to shake his hand if I ever meet him.
Well...
Only a Capone would say, well, I'm going to go down with the ship. I don't know what that means. You know, what is that, in an Edgar A. Guest poem?
Well, nobody says he should get down with his ship, but there's no telling what influence a captain can have.
Influence my foot with those... Are you serious? Of course. Are you serious? With those savages? Those Palestinian maniacs?
Well, tell me something. When an airline pilot negotiates their contracts, part of the contract basis is the fact that they have such a great responsibility for their passengers.
Well, they don't have a responsibility to get themselves shot. Thank you. I tell you, I got to get out of here. I'm tired of talking to Gabones. Tired of it!
Thanks to those two bums, Desmond Tutu and Alan Bosak, Martin Luther King's widow did not meet with Botha. But,
and did not meet with Buthelezi either.
That's correct, the chief of the Zulu tribe. But it's okay for her to meet with Winnie the Firebug Mandela, whose buddies in the Communist African National Congress have been slaughtering black people for the past year or so. And when the South African government tries to prevent this by putting a state of emergency in effect, they're blamed for everything. And then the ANC comes under no blame. And why doesn't Mrs. King take a trip up north into Ethiopia to make sure that food is getting through to the starving people?
Oh, she doesn't have to go there. You know why? Because a guy by the name of William Tatum of the Amsterdam News said that the Mengistu government was doing a good job. Can you believe that?
You know, this whole thing against the South African government, in my opinion, was the biggest fraud of the 20th century.
Press and the politicians in this country are on their knees in a sycophantic tableau to do the bidding of the ANC, the Trans-Africa people, and individuals like that. By the way, I want to point out something that maybe, let's see, are you on the New York line? Well, you don't have to be a New York taxpayer to be upset about it.
I'm calling from Long Island.
All right. At a SUNY campus, they have renamed one of the buildings the Nelson Mandela Building. Can you believe that?
And you want to hear also another beautiful thing? That Desmond Tutu, that fraud, he should be in jail instead of the Anglican Church. He wants to name a street in Washington after that thug Nelson Mandela.
Yeah, I don't know where Tutu gets off. You know, whatever he wants to say in South Africa or about South Africa, as idiotic as it sometimes is, South Africa's his country, so let him say what... But what does he get off more and more talking about this country? Where does he get off with that?
Yeah, he's called our president of racist.
Well, I know that. Well, so what else is new?
Yeah.